Can I say right at the outset, I hate green taxes. I don't think they work, I think they're counterproductive, and they are intensely irritating. They are a byproduct of the ghastly Ed Miliband when he was Labour's Climate Change Secretary. Ed Miliband, remember, the one who courted and wooed the disgusting Russell Brand to try to get Labour the youth vote in the run-up to the 2015 general election. So at last, we've heard from the Prime Minister. Today he's made that major speech. He's had to bring it forward saying he's taking action on those net zero taxes. So we will no longer have to give up our gas boilers by 2026 just as well, because the alternatives are hugely expensive. And has anyone seen a hydrogen boiler for sale in the high street? Because I certainly haven't. Also, we're not going to have to give up our petrol-driven and diesel-driven cars by 2030 after all. The deadline is going to be extended. Great. Now look, I don't have a dog in the fight here. I do not own a car. So I'm not somebody here who's thinking, what about my taxes? I haven't owned a car since 1988. I don't like cars very much. However, Prime Minister, so good so far, but there's so much more you could and should do. The reason I presume the Prime Minister has moved on this is because of the cost of living crisis. People can't afford to junk the petrol-driven car to replace it with a Tesla or an electric-driven car, which is about £30,000. Tesla, a lot more money. Boilers, gas boilers, they're expensive. What, you're going to have to pull one out even if you've only bought it a few years ago and replace it with a heat pump. They don't work in every sort of house, or a hydrogen boiler. So much money, much more than £10,000. But what about going even further, Prime Minister? Every month, when you look at your gas bill, your electric bill, there it is, buried in the detail, the green levy. Who introduced those? Yes, that's right, that Ed Miliband. Of course it was. It's still in everybody's energy bill, and it's costing the average family hundreds of pounds every year. They can't afford it, and they don't agree with it because they don't think it's doing any good. Don't just take my word for it. Take that man, Tony Blair. Yes, for once, I'm going to agree with Tony Blair, because he said only recently that actually Britain rushing to net zero by 2050 is a waste of time because we make so little contribution to global warming when you consider China and India and Brazil are belching out pollution in record levels, and China is churning out coal-fired power stations, it seems, every single month. So if Blair thinks it's pointless, why doesn't Rishi Sunak, who after all speaks like Tony Blair, has even got some of his facial and verbal tics, why doesn't he take a leaf out of Tony Blair's book? He did win 3 elections after all, and junk all those green taxes until the cost of living crisis is no more. There'd be another advantage for hard-working families. It would be a vote winner for the Tories, and they might actually think the Tory government is on their side. And while we're at it, could we absolutely not press ahead with more wind turbine farms onshore land? Ugly, hideous, digging up the countryside, and what happens when it's not windy? They don't work. Pointless. What do you think? You don't have to agree with me. A lot of you might not. Of course, the Green lobby are out in force. Caroline Lucas, Britain's first and only Green MP, she's been attacking it. So you know Rishi Sunak must have got it right in saying he's going to slow the whole process down. What do you think? Comment below. I want your reaction.